Hello, I'm Leon Koziol, Director of the Parenting Rights Institute. I'm also a human rights advocate who practiced law in the federal and state courts of New York for over 23 years. I'm here today to present my concerns over the manner in which a public hearing was conducted on September 23rd, 2021, before the Commission on Forensic Evaluations. I was one of the speakers. This public hearing was conducted virtually. It had a good cross-section of participants and those who simply listened in. It was presented, I think anyway, before a panel, a blue ribbon panel that was appointed by the governor of the state of New York and more recently sponsored by our new governor, Kathy Hochul. Their purpose was to receive testimony and information on how forensic evaluations are being ordered and used. In my view, the view of other speakers, these forensic evaluations are being terribly abused. And so when I presented my testimony, I had every right to believe that its treatment was the same as all the other speakers. But as I later learned from a fellow speaker, the presenters were treated very differently. For example, some were given full video treatment. Others were verbal, but they had their names prominently displayed on the screen. Still others, like me, received neither video treatment nor any prominent display of my identity. That sort of disparate treatment raised early concerns on my part, and I learned of it again only after the hearing had concluded. The presenters themselves, some were very professional and prepared. Some had presented from their offices, yet others presented from their cars, their homes, their couches, and so forth. Some were very volatile. In the case of one speaker, she not only condemned the process, the state, the government, but also all of the speakers. I thought that was very wrong. But it was reflective of the frustration that you will find in the people of the state of New York with the way our government is conducting itself. And ironically, the different ways that the speakers were treated here is reflective of the dysfunction of our state government as a whole. And it's been criticized that way, as a dysfunctional government, by various studies that we have seen over the years, independent studies, that is. So what I decided to do, given the fact if you were to see my testimony that day, all you would see was two women on the other side. They were members of the Office of Domestic Violence. I don't know how they could have been appointed to sponsor this particular hearing, as I think their gender-aligned purpose would scare away a lot of speakers, male contributors, for example. As a judicial whistleblower myself, I testified at great risk. And I think that maybe we could learn from my presentation here that how to make these viral or these virtual hearings more palpable, more professional, and more effective, because our taxpayers rely on it. We expect these hearings to be held with the same formalities as it would if you were present physically in Albany. I think out of respect for the esteemed members of the panel, we all need to treat these hearings with respect. There's also concern presented on how we will be received. We know nothing on how our testimony will be accepted and used, whether this is just window dressing like the Moreland Commission on Public Corruption, which I also testified before and was prematurely dissolved. A federal prosecutor, one of the speakers, was incensed by that. He seized the files, ultimately resulting in the prison terms for the leaders of our New York legislature and a top Cuomo aide. We have a serious problem in Albany, and while all of us seem to know it, nothing's being done about it. So my hope is that this particular commission and its blue ribbon panel treat our presentations with full respect, and that we will learn about actual reforms. I've heard about nothing yet, not even an acknowledgement that I testified at all. So again, this seems to be reflective of the dysfunction of our state government. I hope that it's not, that there will be some reforms, because it's long overdue, and most assuredly in our divorce and family courts. So having received my testimony from a fellow speaker, and again, it's all verbal, there is no physical aspect to it, so I thought I'd recreate it here, then send my recreated testimony back to the commission, also feature it on my website, and then submit it to other critical public officials, because this is a very important issue. I'm a victim of parental alienation of the worst kind, because as a whistleblower, I was targeted. I haven't talked to my daughters in years, and I think that's wrong, because there are many victims like me, and we deserve better from our state government, and most importantly, the jurists that we give such a high regard to when we come into these courts. In any event, here's my testimony. I hope that you will be able to hear it, and in any event, it will be presented both in verbal format and in written format to the members of the commission.
Now, Mr. Koziol?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go.
All right. My name is Leon Koziol. I just want to preface my remarks by emphasizing that I'm a judicial whistleblower. As Tony just stated, we have a need for accountability in this state. I think everybody to some degree is stating that. Really, all the speakers today are, to some degree, whistleblowers in different contexts. I also want to take issue with the woman from Pennsylvania who indicated some problem with fathers' rights. This is not about father rights, women's rights, or any particular segment of the population. It's human rights, and we all need to work together to the problems that we have here. And thirdly, I want to join those people who are asking for the abolishment of these forensic evaluations. As stated, my name is Leon Koziol. I'm director of the Parenting Rights Institute. I'm also a civil rights advocate who practiced law in the courts of this state for more than 23 years. As a victimized father of two daughters now in college, I bring a comprehensive background to the work of your panel and the refreshing objectives of our new governor, Kathy Hochul. There are countless parents, children, and families victimized by forensic evaluations in our divorce and family courts. They are part of a lucrative process and silent epidemic that is causing needless murders, suicides, domestic violence, parental alienation, criminal activity, and an overall decline in the health and productivity of the people of this state. At another time and place, I might be citing cases such as Utica police investigator Joe Longo, who committed a murder-suicide that left 4 children without parents, Thomas Ball, who burned himself alive on the steps of a family court, or the mother who murdered her 2-year-old child, Gabriella Boyd, rather than submit to a custody change. But I need not expound, because I too am a victim. Set to testify here on September 9th, I was instead recuperating at a hospital from a heart condition caused by the stresses I endured as a turning whistleblower. Fortunately, it was not serious and was fully corrected. The 40 trial jurists removed from my originally uncontested divorce included a pedophile, Brian Hedges, and Gerald Popio, who was censured for racist remarks and physical threats from the bench. I also testified before the Moreland Commission on Public Corruption. Such whistleblowing elicited a systemic bias. I've never been found to be an unfit parent, no convictions or agency complaints, and all offense petitions of a child alienating adversary were thrown out. Yet none of that mattered, as I was denied contact with my precious girls for 7 years on such bizarre grounds as a, quote, alcohol-related gesture. Yes, you heard that correctly. A champagne toast at my niece's wedding, and you will find it November 2nd, 2013 decision of Lewis County Family Judge Daniel King. That decision was halted on appeal, but reborn the next month with concocted forensic orders. This illustrates the extreme to which reform efforts are persecuted. I have asked the Justice Department to investigate the human rights violations here. The whimsical manner in which forensic orders are issued, vacated, and then reissued infringes upon a fundamental right of parenting, which the Supreme Court has declared to be the oldest liberty interest protected by our Constitution. Such violations are fueled by an adversarial framework that yields undue profits for service providers and federal revenues under Title 4D of the Social Security Act. In my litigation experience, parents have been subjected to evaluations strictly for tactical reasons. In the end, moms and dads rightfully stressed over the threat of losing their children in a custody battle or debt or imprisonment for child support could be found defective on some 300 disorders approved by the psychiatric profession in its DSM-5 manual. If the parent was a father, this condition might be nothing more than resistance to a justice system sworn to equality which still discriminates on account of gender. I have compared it to the anger issues of slaves. Reports are laced with human defects without tracing them to their structural cause. Rapid-fire torture, which can incite a violent reaction. High conflict divorce, with its immense carnage, was criticized in the 2006 matrimonial report to our state's Chief Justice, and in countless cases such as Webster versus Ryan, where veteran family judge Dennis Duggan made a stand for over-the reform with the following edict. Quote, at the outset, the court notes that the terms custody and visitation have outlived their usefulness. Indeed, their use tends to place any discussion and allocation of family rights into an oppositional framework. Fighting for custody directs the process towards determining winners and losers. The children, always in the middle, usually turn out to be the losers. The court continues. This court has abandoned the use of the word visitation in its orders, using the phrase parenting time instead. If the word custody did not so permeate our statutes and was not so ingrained into our sites, that word would be the next to go. This misplaced focus draws parents into contention and conflict, and drawing the worst from them at a time when the children need their parents best. Abusive forensic orders can be mitigated by a shared parenting model for adjudications. But my reform efforts in that regard read like a John Grisham story. And as fate or timing would have it, that saga is now found in my newly published book, Whistleblower in Paris. A copy is being provided to this commission because the forensic crisis is too extensive for purposes of this hearing. I am therefore joining others today in seeking genuine accountability. And Rosemary and other folks, I want to thank you for hosting this meeting. You should get a copy of my book. Again, it's known as Whistleblower in Paris, and a copy has been overnighted to you. You should receive it later today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Koziol. And next up is Mr. Keith Scott.
And thank you for hearing from me and this particular presentation. Hopefully something will come of it. Good night.